The stars looked different when you knew aliens were coming to kill you. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the empty space ahead transform into something hostile. The ship's sensors had picked up the alien fleet 3 hours ago, and now they were close enough to see with the naked eye. Tiny dots of light that moved too fast and too straight to be anything natural. "Captain, we have visual contact," said Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison from his position at the tactical station. His voice carried the tight control of a man trying not to sound scared. 37 ships in attack formation. They're definitely... Zephyrian. Lisa nodded slowly. Everyone in the human fleet knew about the Zephyrians. They were the aliens who conquered star systems like humans conquered parking spaces, quick, efficient, and without asking permission. 17 worlds had fallen to them in the past 5 years. Their ships were fast, their weapons were deadly, and they had never lost a battle. "Distance?" Lisa asked. 2 million kilometers and closing fast, Jake replied. "They'll be in weapons range in 18 minutes. Science officer Dr. Helen Brooks looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from their fleet. Their ships are much more advanced than ours. If this turns into a fight..." She didn't need to finish. Everyone on the bridge knew what would happen if this turned into a fight. The Defiance was a good ship, but it was built for exploration, not war. The Zephyrians had ships built for one thing only: destroying other ships. "Communications officer Phillips, open a channel to Earth Command," Lisa ordered. Ryan Phillips worked at his console for a moment, then shook his head. "We're too far out, Captain. It would take our message for hours to reach Earth, and for more hours for any response. We're on our own." Lisa had expected this. The Defiance was on the edge of human space, exploring new star systems. They had known the risks when they took this mission, but knowing risks and facing them were two different things. "Captain," Jake said, his voice getting tighter, "the alien ships are changing formation. They're spreading out to surround us." On the main screen, the dots of light were moving in a pattern that Lisa recognized from military training. It was a classic encirclement maneuver, designed to cut off all escape routes. The Zephyrians were preparing to capture or destroy the human ship. "Standard Terran defense protocol suggests we should begin evasive maneuvers and charge our weapons," Jake continued. "Should I bring us to battle stations?" Lisa stared at the screen. The alien ships were beautiful in their own deadly way. They moved like birds in flight, smooth and graceful and completely in sync with each other. She could imagine the alien crews inside, preparing their weapons, planning their attack, confident in their superiority. "No," she said quietly. Jake turned to look at her. "Captain, I said no. Do not bring us to battle stations. Do not charge weapons. Do not begin evasive maneuvers." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Everyone was staring at their captain as if she had lost her mind. "Captain," Dr. Brooks said carefully, "what are your orders?" Lisa took a deep breath. What she was about to do went against everything they had been taught about dealing with hostile aliens. But something told her that following the standard playbook would only get them all killed. "All stop," she ordered. "Cut engines to minimum power. Hold position." "Captain, that's single quotes ... double quotes." Jake started to protest. "Do it," Lisa said firmly. The ship shuddered slightly as the engines wound down. Outside, the alien fleet continued its approach, but Lisa could see confusion in their movements. The Zephyrians had expected the humans to run or fight. They had not expected them to simply stop. "Ryan, open the channel to the alien fleet," Lisa ordered. "Channel open, Captain." Lisa stepped forward, looking directly at the main screen where the alien ships grew larger by the second. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Lisa Carter of the human ship Defiance. We acknowledge your presence. We are listening." The words seemed to hang in the air. On the tactical display, the alien ships continued their approach, but their formation wavered slightly. Lisa could almost feel the confusion radiating from the enemy fleet. Minutes passed in silence. The alien ships completed their encirclement, surrounding the Defiance like sharks around a wounded fish, but still they did not attack. Finally, a harsh voice crackled over the communications system. The universal translator made it sound almost human, but there was something alien in the tone, something cold and predatory. "Human vessel, I am War Vextal of the Zephyrian Confederation. You will surrender your ship and cargo immediately, or you will be destroyed." Lisa looked around at her crew. They were all watching her, waiting to see what she would do. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also trust. They believed in her, even when they didn't understand her. "War Commander Vextal," she replied, We acknowledge your demand. We understand your position. We remain here listening to what you have to say. The alien commander's response came back quickly, anger clear in his voice. You mock us, human. Surrender now or face annihilation. We do not mock you, Lisa said calmly. We recognize your strength. We see your ships. We understand your capabilities. We are here waiting to hear your words. Another long silence fell over the bridge. Outside, the alien ships hung in space like birds of prey, beautiful and deadly and completely confused by their motionless target. The alien ships began to move in strange patterns around the motionless human vessel. Dr. Helen Brooks watched her sensors carefully, trying to understand what the Zephyrians were doing. Their ships darted back and forth like angry wasps, coming close to the Defiance and then pulling away at the last second. They're testing us, she said to Captain Carter. Each pass brings them closer. They're trying to make us panic. Lisa nodded but said nothing. She stood perfectly still in the center of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the alien ships on the main screen. Her calm seemed to spread to the rest of the crew, though she could still see tension in their faces. Captain, Communications Officer Ryan Phillips said, I'm getting multiple transmissions from the alien fleet. They're getting louder. Put them through, Lisa ordered. War Commander Vextel's voice filled the bridge, and this time there was no mistaking the frustration in his tone. Human ship, you will respond to our demands. We have destroyed the fleets of 17 worlds. We have weapons that can turn your ship to dust. Why do you not flee in terror? Lisa stepped forward slightly. War Commander, we have heard your words about your victories. We acknowledge your powerful weapons. We understand that you could destroy us. We remain here because we choose to remain here. The communication channel went silent for several minutes. On her screen, Dr. Brooks could see the alien ships continuing their aggressive maneuvers, but something had changed. Their movements were becoming less coordinated, more erratic. They're burning fuel at an incredible rate, she reported quietly to Lisa. Those high-speed maneuvers require enormous amounts of energy. At this rate, they'll exhaust their reserves in 6 hours. Lisa smiled slightly but said nothing. She had noticed something else about the alien movements. Each time they completed an aggressive pass near the Defiance, they seemed to expect some kind of response. When no response came, they had to improvise. And improvisation was clearly not their strong suit. Ryan Phillips looked up from his console with surprise on his face. Captain, I'm receiving personal messages from individual alien ships. They're asking questions about our behavior. What kind of questions? They want to know if we're broken, if our engines are damaged, if our crew is dead. Ryan paused, looking confused. One of them asked if we're a religious vessel engaged in some kind of prayer ritual. Jake Morrison turned from his tactical station. Captain, this doesn't make sense. Why aren't they just attacking? They clearly have superior firepower. Lisa finally moved from her position, walking slowly to the communications console. Ryan, open a channel to the alien fleet. All ships channel open. Captain, War Commander Vexel and ships of the Zephyrian fleet, Lisa began, her voice carrying clearly through the bridge and out to the alien vessels. We have listened to your words about conquest and destruction. We have observed your impressive ships and skilled pilots. We understand that your culture values strength and victory above all else. She paused, and in that pause, the alien ships seemed to slow their frantic movements slightly. We want you to know that we see you, Lisa continued. We see your power, your achievements, your mastery of space combat. We acknowledge that you have conquered 17 worlds and defeated every enemy you have faced. Another pause. The alien fleet had almost stopped their aggressive maneuvers entirely. We remain here not because we cannot move, but because we choose not to move. We stay not because we are afraid, but because we are not afraid. We listen not because we must, but because we wish to understand who you are and what you truly want. The response from War Commander Vextel came back quickly, but his voice sounded different now, less certain. You speak in riddles. Human, state your intentions clearly. Our intention is to remain here and continue this conversation. Lisa replied, we wish to learn about you, just as you are learning about us. Dr. Brooks motioned for Lisa's attention and whispered, Captain, their bioreadings are changing. I'm detecting elevated stress hormones across multiple alien vessels. Lisa nodded slightly and continued speaking to the alien commander. War Commander, your ships have been performing combat maneuvers for over 2 hours. Your crews must be tired. Perhaps we could discuss this situation while your pilots rest. The alien commander's response was sharp and angry. Zephyrian warriors do not tire. We do not rest in the face of the enemy. We are not your enemy, Lisa said simply. We are travelers, like you. We explore space, seeking new knowledge and new friends. If you wish us to be your enemy, we could do that, but it seems unnecessary. On the tactical display, Jake could see several alien ships breaking formation. Their pilots seemed to be having difficulty maintaining the precise attack patterns they had started with. Captain, Ryan said quietly, I'm getting more personal transmissions. The alien crews are asking about human endurance capabilities. They want to know how long we can maintain our position. Tell them we can maintain this position indefinitely, Lisa replied. Our ship is designed for long-duration missions. We have supplies for 18 months and the ability to manufacture more. The alien fleet's movements became even more chaotic. Several ships collided with each other in minor scrapes, something that clearly had not happened when they first arrived. War Commander Vextal's voice returned, and now there was something like desperation in it. Human vessel, you will explain your behavior. Are you trying to confuse us? Are you preparing some kind of attack? Lisa looked around at her crew. They were all watching her with expressions of amazement and growing understanding. They were beginning to see what she was doing. War Commander, she said. We are doing exactly what we appear to be doing. We are sitting still in space, talking with you, and waiting to see what happens next. We have no hidden agenda, no secret weapons charging, no attack planned. We are simply here, being present with you in this moment. The silence that followed was the longest yet. When it finally broke, it was not War Commander Vextal who spoke, but another voice, younger and less certain. Human ship, this is Flight Leader Kextra. We do not understand your actions. In our experience, all species either flee from us or attack us. You do neither. What kind of beings are you? Lisa smiled. We are the kind of beings who believe that every meeting between different species is a chance to learn something new. What kind of beings are you, Flight Leader? For hours had passed since the alien fleet arrived, and the Zephyrian ships were showing clear signs of strain. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez monitored their energy signatures from his station. Watching the steady decline in their power reserves, the aliens had been flying aggressive combat maneuvers for hours, burning fuel at rates that no military force could sustain indefinitely. Captain, Ben reported, their lead ships are down to 60% power. The smaller fighters are showing signs of mechanical stress. 2 of them have had to drop back from the formation entirely. Captain Lisa Carter nodded, but her attention remained focused on the main screen where the alien fleet continued its increasingly desperate attempts to provoke a response. The ships that had started the encounter in perfect formation now flew in ragged patterns, their pilots clearly exhausted. Dr. Helen Brooks looked up from her science station with interest. Captain, I'm reading some fascinating biological data from the alien vessels. Their crew stress levels are through the roof, but their aggression hormones are actually decreasing. What does that mean? Asked Jake Morrison. It means they're getting tired of being angry, Helen explained. Their bodies can't maintain that level of combat readiness indefinitely. They're burning out. Meanwhile, the human crew had settled into a routine that Captain Carter had established. 1/3 of the crew was on duty, 1/3 was resting, and 1/3 was engaged in what she called contemplation time, quiet activities like reading, meditation, or simply thinking. The ship ran on minimal power, all systems steady and calm. Communications Officer Ryan Phillips received another transmission from the alien fleet. Captain, War Commander Vextal is demanding to speak with you again. Put him through, Lisa said. The alien commander's voice now carried a note of genuine confusion alongside the anger. Human Captain Carter, your behavior violates every principle of space combat. You should be afraid. You should be trying to escape or preparing to fight. Instead, you sit there like a stone in space. Are you mocking our power? Lisa stepped forward, her voice as calm as it had been hours ago. War Commander, we are not mocking anything. We are demonstrating something different. On our world, we learned long ago that the strongest response is not always the loudest response. Explain this, Vextal demanded. Consider a mountain, Lisa said. When storms come, the mountain does not fight the wind. It does not try to push back against the rain. It simply remains solid and unmoved until the storm passes. The mountain is not afraid of the storm, and the storm cannot defeat the mountain. There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. You compare yourself to a mountain. I compare humanity to the principle the mountain represents, Lisa replied. We have learned that true strength sometimes means choosing not to use your power even when you possess it. War Commander Vextal's response came back sharp and disbelieving. You claim to possess power, Your single ship against our fleet. Lisa looked at Jake, who was monitoring their weapons systems. She had made a careful decision hours ago, and now it was time to reveal it. Jake, display our defensive capabilities. On the main screen, full specifications. Jake's eyes widened, but he followed the order. The main screen filled with technical readouts showing the Defiance's shield systems, point defense weapons, and electronic warfare capabilities. War Commander, Lisa said, these are our ship's defensive systems. As you can see, we have weapons that could disable several of your fighters and shields that could withstand your initial assault long enough for us to call for reinforcements. The alien fleet's movements became noticeably more erratic as they processed this information. But Captain War Commander Vextel said, his voice now uncertain, if you have these capabilities, why have you not used them? Why do you not threaten us in return? Because, Lisa said simply, destroying your ships would not teach us anything about who you are. Fighting you would not help us understand your culture or your needs. We choose not to use our weapons because using them would make us smaller, not larger. Dr. Brooks motioned to Lisa and whispered, Captain, I'm getting some very interesting readings. Several alien ships are experiencing what looks like system failures, but they're not mechanical. Their crews are having some kind of psychological response. Ryan Phillips looked up from his console with amazement. Captain, I'm receiving private communications from individual Zephyrian crew members. They're asking about human philosophy and something they call chosen peace. One of these communications came through clearly enough for the bridge crew to hear. A young alien voice, uncertain and curious. Human ship, this is navigators of the vessel Swift Death. We do not understand your concept of choosing not to fight when you are able to fight. In our culture, strength that is not displayed is considered weakness. How can unused power be considered strength? Lisa smiled. This was the question she had been hoping someone would ask. Navigator Zexman, imagine that you are very hungry, and you come upon a fruit tree. You could cut down the entire tree and take all the fruit, but then there would be no tree to give fruit tomorrow. Or you could take only what you need and leave the tree to grow more fruit. Which action shows greater strength? Another voice joined the conversation, this one older and more thoughtful. Human Captain, this is Ship Leader Kextel. Your analogy is interesting, but conquest is not the same as gathering fruit. When we conquer a world, we bring order and efficiency to chaos. Ship Leader Kextel, Lisa replied, what happens after you conquer a world? Do the people there become happy? Do they thank you for bringing order? A long silence followed this question. Finally, War Commander Vextel spoke again, but his voice had changed. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Uncertainty, perhaps, or even curiosity. Captain Carter, your words are ... disturbing. You suggest that our way of life, our culture's greatest achievements, are somehow wrong. I suggest nothing about right or wrong, Lisa replied. I only ask questions. When your crews return home after a conquest, are they happy? When your people look at the stars, do they feel joy or do they feel the need to conquer what they see? Ben Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. Captain, something's happening with their fleet formation. Several ships are breaking away from the main group. On the tactical display, Jake could see that the alien fleet was no longer maintaining its threatening formation. Ships were drifting apart, and their aggressive maneuvers had stopped entirely. War Commander, Lisa said, your crews are tired, and your ships need rest. Would you like to continue this conversation while your people recover? War Commander Vextel made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. After 6 hours of psychological warfare that he didn't understand and couldn't counter, his frustration finally overwhelmed his military training. The human ship's absolute stillness, their captain's maddeningly calm responses, and his own crew's growing questions about Zephyrian culture had pushed him beyond his limits. All ships he commanded through gritted teeth. Prepare to fire. Target the human vessel's engines. We will disable them and take their crew prisoner. But something unprecedented happened. His weapons officer, a young Zephyrian named Texhar, hesitated at the controls. Sir, Texhar said uncertainly, the humans have shown us their defensive capabilities. They could have attacked us hours ago, but they chose not to. If we fire on them now, you will follow orders, Vextel snapped, but his voice lacked its usual authority. The long hours of dealing with the humans' inexplicable behavior had worn down his confidence. On the human ship, Jake Morrison's tactical sensors immediately detected the weapons lock. Captain, they're targeting our engines. Multiple ships are charging weapons. Captain Lisa Carter looked at her crew. She could see the fear in their faces, but also trust. They had followed her this far into uncharted psychological territory, and they were prepared to follow her further. "Ryan, open a channel to all Zephyrian vessels," she ordered. "Channel open. Captain, War Commander, Vextal, and crews of the Zephyrian fleet," Lisa began, her voice still carrying that same impossible calm. "We see that you are preparing to fire on our ship. We understand that our behavior has been confusing to you." She paused, and in that pause something remarkable happened. Several Zephyrian ships powered down their weapons without being ordered to do so. "We want you to know," Lisa continued, "that we are not afraid of your weapons. We are not afraid because we understand something that perhaps your culture has not yet discovered. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle." War Commander Vextal's voice crackled over the communication system, but now it sounded strained and uncertain. "Human Captain, you speak in riddles while we point weapons at your ship. Do you not understand that we can destroy you?" "We understand perfectly," Lisa replied. "We also understand that if you destroy us, you will learn nothing. You will return to your commanders with the same knowledge you had when you arrived. You will have gained nothing except the temporary satisfaction of destroying something that confused you." Dr. Helen Brooks was monitoring the alien biosignatures carefully. "Captain," she whispered, "something's happening aboard their ships. I'm reading internal conflicts, elevated stress levels, and what looks like crew arguments." Indeed, across the Zephyrian fleet, unprecedented scenes were unfolding. Crew members were questioning orders, arguing with their superiors, and in some cases, refusing to follow commands entirely. The human ship's psychological approach had created something the Zephyrian military had never experienced: doubt. On the flagship, Weapons Officer Texar was staring at his firing controls with visible confusion. "War Commander," he said slowly, "I don't understand what we're trying to accomplish. The humans aren't threatening us. They're not running away. They're just talking to us." "They are the enemy," Vextal replied, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. "But why are they the enemy?" asked Navigation Officer Kexman. "Because they entered our space. But we've entered their space too. Because they have different technology, but they haven't used their technology against us." These questions were being repeated across the Zephyrian fleet. For the first time in their military careers, Zephyrian officers were asking not how to defeat an enemy, but why that enemy needed to be defeated at all. Captain Carter seemed to sense the confusion in the alien fleet. "War Commander," she said, "may I share something with you, a story from our world's history?" "Speak," Vextal replied, though he wasn't sure why he was giving permission. Long ago on Earth, there were two groups who had been enemies for generations. Each side told stories about how evil and dangerous the other side was. Each side prepared weapons and planned attacks. But one day, a child from one group got lost and wandered into the territory of the other group. Lisa paused, letting the story sink in. The people from the second group found this child. According to all their stories, they should have harmed the child or used the child as a weapon against their enemies. Instead, they fed the child, cared for the child, and returned the child safely home. "What happened then?" asked a young voice from the Zephyrian fleet. It was Flight Leader Kextra, the same officer who had spoken hours earlier. The child's parents realized that their enemies were not the monsters they had imagined. They were just people, like themselves, trying to protect their families and live their lives. The two groups began to talk instead of fight. Eventually they became allies. War Commander Vextal was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Captain Carter, are you saying that we are like children who have lost our way?" "I'm saying that we are all travelers in space," Lisa replied. "We all come from worlds where people love their families, try to build good lives, and hope for a better future. The universe is vast enough for all of us." Suddenly, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Susan Walsh spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm receiving requests from several Zephyrian ships. They're asking about human medical techniques for treating stress and fatigue." Ryan Phillips added, "Captain, I'm getting dozens of personal messages from individual Zephyrian crew members. They want to know about human culture, human art, human philosophy." Lisa looked at War Commander Vextal's image on the screen. The alien leader looked exhausted, confused, and somehow smaller than he had when this encounter began. "War Commander," she said gently, "would you like to try something that has never been done before? Would you be willing to exchange cultural observers? We could send some of our people to your ships, and you could send some of your people to ours, not as prisoners or hostages, but as guests and teachers." The suggestion was so radical, so completely outside Zephyrian military doctrine, that it took several minutes for Vextal to find his voice. "Captain Carter," he said finally, What you suggest is unprecedented. My people do not make friends with their enemies. Then perhaps, Lisa replied softly, it is time to stop seeing us as enemies. The transformation of War Commander Vextal began with a simple realization. He had been holding his breath for the past 8 hours. Not literally, but in every way that mattered. His entire body, his entire mind, his entire worldview had been locked in a state of constant tension, always prepared for the next battle, the next conquest, the next enemy to defeat. Sitting in his command chair aboard the Zephyrian flagship Storm of Victory, he finally allowed himself to exhale. The human captain's words had done something that decades of military training had not. They had made him question not just his tactics, but his purpose. War Commander, his communications officer reported. We are receiving requests from 17 different ships in our fleet. Crew members are asking permission to communicate directly with the human vessel. This was unthinkable. Zephyrian military protocol strictly forbade unauthorized communication with enemy forces, but as Vextal looked at the human ship on his screen, still sitting motionless in space like a patient teacher waiting for students to understand a lesson, he found himself questioning that protocol too. Grant permission, he said quietly. The words seemed to hang in the air. His bridge crew stared at him with expressions of shock and confusion. In his entire military career, War Commander Vextal had never deviated from standard procedure. The human ship, communications officer Ryan Phillips, was overwhelmed by incoming messages. Captain, I can barely keep up with all the transmissions we're receiving. Zephyrian crew members are asking about everything. Human music, human food, human family structures, human recreational activities. Captain Lisa Carter smiled. Answer what you can, Ryan. Ask Dr. Brooks and the others to help you. One transmission came through clearly enough for the entire bridge to hear. It was from a young Zephyrian engineer named Beck. Human ship, this is Engineer Bexara from the vessel Death's Edge. I have been listening to your conversations with our War Commander. You speak of choosing not to use power when you possess it. This concept is difficult for us to understand. In our culture, unused power is wasted power. Lieutenant Sam Turner, the ship's cultural specialist and former poet, stepped forward. Engineer Bexara, may I ask you something? When you were very young, before you joined the military, what did you dream of becoming? The question seemed to surprise the alien engineer. After a long pause, Bexara replied, I wanted to build things, beautiful things, structures that would last for generations and bring joy to those who saw them. What happened to that dream? Sam asked gently. Another pause. Even longer. The military needed engineers for weapons systems. Building weapons was considered more important than building beautiful things. Dr. Susan Walsh, monitoring the conversation, noticed something remarkable in the bioreadings from the Zephyrian ships. Captain, their stress levels are dropping significantly. I'm also detecting neurochemical changes consistent with what humans experience during moments of insight or self-discovery. Captain Carter stepped forward. Engineer Bexara, what if I told you that the most powerful thing in the universe is not a weapon, but an idea? What if the strongest force is not the one that destroys, but the one that creates and inspires? I would say that sounds impossible, Bexara replied, but her voice carried a note of hope. Let me share something with you, Captain Carter said. She nodded to Ryan Phillips, who began transmitting data to the Zephyrian fleet. These are recordings of human music, Lisa explained, created by people who had no weapons, no armies, no power except their ability to arrange sounds and patterns that touched the heart. The music that flowed across space to the alien ships was carefully chosen. A Mozart symphony, a jazz improvisation, a children's lullaby, and a folk song about peace. Simple melodies that spoke of joy, sadness, love, and hope. That the effect on the Zephyrian crews was immediate and profound. For beings who had spent their lives surrounded by the harsh sounds of warfare, engine noise, weapon fire, shouted orders, the music was a revelation. This is impossible, came a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. It was War Commander Vextal himself, and his voice carried wonder instead of anger. How can arranged sounds affect our emotions so powerfully? This must be some kind of weapon. It is a weapon, Captain Carter replied. It is a weapon against despair, against loneliness, against the belief that the universe is a cold and hostile place. But it works not by destroying, but by building connections between different minds and hearts. Navigator Amy Foster, who had been quietly monitoring the alien fleet's positions, looked up with surprise. Captain, something's happening with their formation. They're not maintaining combat positions anymore. Several ships are moving closer to us, but not in attack patterns. Indeed, the Zephyrian ships were drifting toward the human vessel in a way that suggested curiosity rather than aggression. It was as if they were drawn by some invisible force. War Commander Vextor, Captain Carter said, "Your ships are moving closer to us. Are you planning to attack?" "No," Vextor replied, and his voice carried a tone of confusion. "My cruiser, they want to see your ship more clearly. They want to understand how beings who create such beautiful sounds live and work." Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm getting technical questions from their engineering staff. They want to know about our life support systems, our recreational facilities, our crew quarters. They seem fascinated by the idea that our ship is designed for comfort as well as function." "Answer their questions honestly," Captain Carter ordered. Over the next 2 hours, something unprecedented happened. The two fleets began to share information not as enemies or even as cautious allies, but as curious neighbors. The Zephyrians learned about human art, literature, games, and family traditions. The humans learned about Zephyrian technology, their complex social hierarchies, and their deep-seated fear of appearing weak to other species. Dr. Helen Brooks made a discovery that would change everything. "Captain," she said, studying her readings carefully, "I've been analyzing the Zephyrian ship's energy signatures. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's designed entirely for conflict. They have no recreational facilities, no comfortable living spaces, no systems designed for anything except warfare and conquest. They've built a civilization based entirely on being afraid of everyone else." Captain Carter realized War-Commander Vextor's voice came over the communication system one more time, but now it sounded different. Tired perhaps, but also relieved, like someone setting down a heavy burden. "Captain Carter," he said, "I must ask you something that violates every principle of Zephyrian military doctrine. Would you be willing to meet with me in person? Not as enemies, not as warriors, but as— I do not know what word to use." "As fellow travelers," Captain Carter replied. "Yes, War Commander, I would be honored to meet with you." The meeting between Captain Lisa Carter and War Commander Vextor took place in the shuttle bay of the Defiance, a space that had been hastily converted into a neutral meeting room. Both leaders came with small delegations, but the atmosphere was unlike anything either species had experienced in first contact situations. War Commander Vextor was not what Lisa had expected. The alien leader was tall and graceful, with silver blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold depths of exhaustion. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had spent a lifetime carrying burdens he was only now beginning to question. "Captain Carter," he said, "I must confess something to you. In my 40 years of military service, I have never met an enemy who offered to teach me about their culture. I have never encountered a species that chose patience over violence when faced with superior force." Lisa gestured for him to sit in one of the human-style chairs that had been provided. "War Commander, may I ask you a personal question? When you were young, before you became a military leader, what did you want to be?" The question seemed to surprise Vextor as much as it had surprised Engineer Bexara hours earlier. He was quiet for a long moment, his large eyes focusing on something far away. "I wanted to be an explorer," he said finally. "I dreamed of finding new worlds, not to conquer them, but to study them, to learn about different forms of life, different ways of thinking." He paused. "That dream was considered inappropriate for a Zephyrian of my social class." "What changed?" Lisa asked gently. "Fear," Vextor replied without hesitation. "My people encountered several hostile species in our early space exploration. We learned that the universe was dangerous, that other civilizations would destroy us. If we appeared weak, we decided that the only way to survive was to become the most feared species in our region of space." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "And did it work? Do you feel safe now?" Vextor's laugh was bitter. "Safe, Captain? I have not felt truly safe since I was a child. Every conquest brings new enemies. Every victory requires us to be ready for the next battle. We have become so focused on appearing strong that we have forgotten how to be at peace." At that moment, the shuttle bay's communication system activated. It was Ryan Phillips from the bridge. "Captain, we're receiving an urgent transmission from an unknown source. Long-range sensors detect multiple ships approaching our position at high speed." Lisa and Vextor exchanged glances. "Can you identify them?" Lisa asked. "Negative, Captain. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. They appear to be mechanical in nature, with no biological life signs." War Commander Vex stood up quickly, his military training taking over. "Captain, those are void hunters, mechanical parasites that feed on conflict energy. They are drawn to areas where different species are fighting. Lisa felt her blood run cold. She had heard rumors of the Void Hunters, automated warships left behind by some long-dead civilization. They were said to be attracted to violence and capable of destroying entire fleets. How long do we have? She asked. Perhaps 20 minutes before they arrive in weapons range, Vextal replied. Captain, I must return to my ship immediately. The Void Hunters will attack both our fleets indiscriminately. But Lisa put a hand on his arm. War Commander, what? If we don't give them what they're looking for? I don't understand. You said they feed on conflict energy. What if there is no conflict for them to feed on? What if instead of fighting each other, we work together? The idea was so radical that Vextal needed several moments to process it. Captain, are you suggesting that our fleets coordinate their defenses? I'm suggesting something more than that, Lisa replied. I'm suggesting that we combine our technologies and our knowledge to create something neither of us could achieve alone. Over the next 15 minutes, something unprecedented happened in the history of both species. Human and Zephyrian engineers worked together to integrate their technologies. The humans contributed their defensive systems and electronic warfare capabilities, while the Zephyrians provided their advanced weapons and propulsion systems. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez found himself working directly with Zephyrian engineers, sharing technical specifications that had been classified secrets just hours earlier. Their power systems are incredible, he reported to Captain Carter. If we can integrate them with our shield harmonics, we might be able to create a defensive GRID that covers both fleets. The Void Hunters arrived exactly when War Commander Vextal had predicted. 3 massive mechanical ships, dark and angular, with no lights except the cold glow of their scanning beams. They moved through space with the precision of machines, seeking the electromagnetic signatures of combat, but what they found confounded their programming. Instead of 2 fleets preparing to destroy each other, they encountered something their creators had never anticipated: 2 different species working together, their ships linked by energy fields and coordinated defense systems. The first Void Hunter fired its primary weapon at what should have been the weakest point in the formation, the gap between the human and Zephyrian fleets, but that gap had been filled with a hybrid shield system that absorbed the energy and distributed it across both fleets harmlessly. It's working, reported Dr. Helen Brooks from her science station. The Void Hunters' targeting systems are designed to exploit conflicts between different factions. They can't adapt to cooperative defense strategies. The battle that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced. Human tactical precision combined with Zephyrian firepower created weapon systems that neither side could have developed alone. Zephyrian speed and agility enhanced by human electronic warfare capabilities made their ships nearly impossible for the mechanical hunters to target. But the real victory came when Captain Carter realized something crucial. The Void Hunters aren't just attracted to conflict, she announced over the communication system. They're sustained by it. If we can eliminate all aggressive intent from our actions, if we can fight them with purely defensive and protective motivations, they'll lose their power source. War Commander Vextal understood immediately. All Zephyrian ships, modify your targeting priorities. You are not attacking the Void Hunters, you are protecting the human vessels. Fight not to destroy, but to preserve. The effect was immediate and dramatic. As both fleets shifted their mindset from aggression to protection, the Void Hunters began to weaken. Their weapons became less effective, their movements more sluggish. Within an hour, the mechanical ships retreated into the depths of space, their hunger unfulfilled. In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Lisa Carter stood once again in the shuttle bay with War Commander Vextal, but now the alien leader looked different. The weight of exhaustion had lifted from his shoulders, replaced by something that looked like hope. Captain, he said, my people will need time to understand what happened here today. For 40 years, we have believed that strength comes from the ability to inspire fear. You have shown us that true strength comes from the ability to inspire trust. Lisa smiled. War Commander, would you be interested in a longer conversation? Perhaps we could explore some of those worlds you dreamed of studying when you were young. Together, Vextal's large eyes brightened. Captain Carter, I believe. That would be the beginning of something neither of our species has experienced before. What's that? Lisa asked. Peace, Vextal replied. Real peace, not just the absence of war, but the presence of genuine friendship between different forms of life. As the 2 fleets prepared to depart together for the first joint human exploration mission, Captain Carter made one final log entry. Today we learned that the most powerful weapon in the universe is not any technology we can build, but the simple choice to listen instead of shoot, to understand instead of fear. and to remain silent until that silence itself becomes a form of communication that transcends all barriers between thinking beings. The stars ahead looked different now. They looked like destinations rather than battlefields, like opportunities rather than threats. And in the quiet space between worlds, humanity's silence had indeed spoken louder than any weapon ever could.